As a salesperson, I always had a process and a structure. As a sales leader, I quickly found that I was like a dog chasing a car down the street every morning, right? That like, I never knew what direction the car was going, but I know I got to get that car. And it was like, you know, there's a deal issue. I've got a personnel issue. I got to recruit. I got a board meeting. I got to give a forecast to my boss. Like every day it was crazy. And my brain, I'm too much of a nerd for that. And so I created a structure of sales leadership. It's basically a sales leadership process. I call it the 5 F's of building revenue capacity.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a more modern approach to selling, the application of virtual and hybrid selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Todd Caponi. Todd is a returning guest. Todd, second time on the podcast, eh?
Yeah, I'm honored.
Well, when you have a transparency nerd, sales and science amalgamator, sales historian, and an author, speaker, and trainer, I mean, why would you not want to speak to someone like that a couple of times? So, Todd, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's so good to catch up with you and be back and nerding out with you.
And of course, the biggest reason where we're going to get into in a minute is that as an author, you've just written your second book, Fred, slow down. I'm so excited about it. The Transparent Sales Leader. So I want to talk about that. But first, come on, let's just have a bit of a nerdiness geek conversation. So you are a history geek. You love reading old sales scripts, manuals, that kind of thing. What's the last thing you've read? What were they saying back then?
Well, so it's funny you ask, because I just got back 2 weeks ago. We were on vacation, and like, you know, cool people, when they go on vacation, they're going out, they're like doing, I'm sitting like on a beach with the kids, but I was reading 1921 and 1922 magazines, and it was Sales Management magazine. So I've got about 2 years worth of those, and I was going through them. And Fred, there's a reason specifically why I was doing that. And if you'll allow me to rant for a minute, and hopefully your nerdy audience will enjoy this part. You know, in 1921 and 1922, we hit it was a depression here in the U.S. That people don't talk about. Like, they talk about the Great Depression of 1929 to 1933, but 1921, 1922 was a recession/depression where the lead up looks exactly like the last 8 years that we've been through. It's almost repeating itself. And we, as a profession, tend to step on the same rake over and over again. And so I was reading that whole set because, from a leadership perspective, just watching the kinds of struggles and the conversations that they were having back then about, oh my gosh, we just went from an incredible boom to the lights are starting to go out. How do we deal with that? And so 1921, 1922 Sales Management magazine is the short answer to your question.
Cool. I'm testing my own history now. So is that when they were just recovering from Spanish flu? Am I right?
Well, I'll give you the
God, I can't help myself.
Yeah, if you look at 1914 to 1918, it looked exactly like 2017 to 2020 here.
Yeah.
Right, where you had slow, steady growth, things were good. And then you had the economy shut down. Yeah. Now, you're right, 1918 was the Spanish flu, but the shutdown here in the US was us entering World War I. We entered late. So in Europe, you guys were already in it. We came in late and we didn't stay long. And when it ended, everything all of a sudden started booming again. So the Spanish flu, which is amazing, when you read all the magazines, all the books, nobody even mentions it. Like it's like it didn't happen in the business world. Like they just ignored it and they're like, charge ahead. But the lead up was, 1919 here in the US, we had an incredible spike that led to something that looked exactly like the Great Resignation that we just went through, where you had too many open roles and not enough salespeople. You had salespeople jumping roles, turnover of 60% in the sales community. And here in the US, it was 57% last year. So it looks exactly the same. massive investment. And then huge inflation spike back in early 1920, it was 7%, and they called that catastrophic. Here in the US, we just hit 9%. So it's actually worse now. And then the wheels fell off. And in 1921, there was 77% salesperson turnover, 77%. And then the next year, it went up to 85%. 1922, salesperson turnover, 85%. Companies practically purging their entire sales organizations after this massive boom and this great resignation type of thing that looks exactly like what we've been dealing with here. And so that's why I've been studying it and reading it and talking a lot about it. I was kind of raising the flag back in January that this could come. But who knows if we're in a recession or not right now, but we always follow inflation spikes by pretty heavy tightening. And I think we all need to be prepared for that.
And I wonder if we talk ourselves into them better now with all the technology that we've got that didn't exist then. So, well, this is a totally different podcast. So, but the point is, we survived.
We always do. Yeah,
always do.
But then we always relive the same mistakes again.
Well, yeah, you say, I love that, stood on a rake again.
Yes.
And so what was the magazine saying? So what was kind of, let's take one of the tidbits out of that, and then we'll get into the great leadership is going to be the solution, and that is what you've been writing about. So there's the easy seg. But what was one of the things that they said?
I mean, there's a million of them, right? It was, I mean, it's funny that, 1920, it was all about revenue at all costs. 1922, it was all about profitability and smart growth and extending your runway and getting better focus and making sure that your team is staying positive, right? And so it was all the same things that we're talking about today. When I talk about stepping on the same rake over and over again, it's like, hey, if there's tons of money and there's tons of opportunity, let's spend, and we'll make money later. And like, that's what always gets us into trouble. It did in, the early 2000s. It did in 2008, 2009. It's happening again now. And like, so that's the lesson is, all right, how do we pull back, keep everybody positive, get better focus out of our teams and spend smartly. And it's funny in the Q&A section of every episode or every edition of the magazine, that there's leaders sending in notes saying like, hey, how should we be dealing with that? And it's funny, like in 3 editions in a row, the conversation is about how do we adjust quota in a downturn? Like, how do we predict what a rep should be able to do and balance that with making sure they stay positive and feel like when they wake up in the morning, they're going to be able to hit their targets, because nothing is more deflating than having a target that you can't hit. Right. So I could take paragraphs from 100 years ago, drop them in the LinkedIn right now. People would read them and go, that's brilliant. And they would have no idea that's 100 years old.
I mean, you do that sometimes, don't you? I mean, I know you always attribute.
None of your business.
Look at this. No, you did. The ones I've seen anyway, you put, This is what this guy wrote then. Come on, guys. What's going on?
Exactly. I always start with that.
What you're saying is all of the others that you don't attribute are actually from the magazine as well.
They might be. That's that's right. We'll see.
And you've got all the copies. So we will never know.
That's right. I bought them all.
That's so cool. I think right. Let's get on topic. So, Transparency Sale was book 1.
Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, I mean, we did an episode on this, but in a nutshell, explain to us what that was about, because this is going to set up the next piece.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because that first book was the result of a study that was done while I was the chief revenue officer of my last company, which was called Power Reviews. And if you'll indulge me, I'll tell you the quick story, because it really tells why I wrote the book and why I think it's so important. Is this idea that the company I was with was called Power Reviews. Probably guessed from the name, we were in the ratings and review space. So we helped retailers and brands collect and display ratings and reviews on their website. And all of you that are listening have probably interacted with it, because it's brands like Crocs and Vineyard Vines and Jet and a bunch of, like, there was 1,000 retailers and brands that when you look at a product, you scroll down, there's the reviews. That was us in the background doing the collect and display. Here's what happened though. We had done a research study with a local university that just looked into, all right, when a website's acting as a salesperson, what do people do? Like, what do human beings do? There was 3 data points that came out of it, 2 of which changed my life like could only happen to a massive nerd. The one that didn't change my life was that we all read reviews today. So all of you listening, I'm sure that the number was 96% back then. It's gone up to 99% of us will read a review when we're buying something we haven't bought before that's of medium to high consideration, meaning it matters, not like a pack of gum, right? And that's, again, what a website's acting as a salesperson. I'm going to get to the human to human in a second. The 2 data points, though, that changed my life. Number 1 was that 85% of us go to the negative reviews first. We skip the 5 stars and go right to the 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. And the last data point was that when a product on a 5-star scale has an average review score, and this is across all product categories, but an average review score between a 4.2 and a 4.5, that's optimal for purchase conversion, meaning a product that has negative reviews right under it sells better than a product that's got nothing but perfect 5-star reviews. And to me, I was like, all right, that's weird. Why are we as human beings drawn to the negative first? Why do we need the negative to be able to actually trigger a purchase decision? So I started looking into all the behavioral science and found that that's just the way we're wired, and that it absolutely applies to human or B2B selling. We started trying it, and we became Chicago's fastest growing tech company from 2014 to 2017, speeding sales cycles, increasing win rates, qualifying in better, qualifying out better the deals we're going to lose anyway, just faster, and making it really hard on our competitors to message against us. And the book was really about, all right, cool, Todd, nice and nerdy, how do we do it? And so it was the tactics of applying it to your messaging, your positioning, your presenting, your negotiating, your client success, and upsell, cross-sell, how you interview, how you are an interviewer, like all of those pieces. How do you apply it? That was the transparency sales. Transparency sells better than perfection. It also retains, it grows, and it creates advocates better. And that was kind of the core function of that first one.
I love it. I always hear on the side of a desk, look.
There you go.
Lead with a flaw.
Well,
people
yeah,
can't get a head around that, can they?
It's not a gimmick. It's not a trick. It's our job. And here's something new that, all right, I know you love the sales history, so I'm going to throw you another one here. Buyers know more nowadays, right? Like that phrase, buyers know more nowadays. That phrase is actually from Thomas Herbert Russell's 1912 book, Salesmanship. All right. 110 years ago, they were worried about the proliferation of information and how that was threatening the sales profession. That all of a sudden, because of advertising and marketing and the accessibility of information, salespeople who needs a salesperson? I'm going to do all my own research, right? The sales profession flourished. Fast forward to 2015, so 7 years ago, Forrester issues their annual State of Sales report. And in it, they claim that by 2020, so within 5 years of that date, 1 million B2B selling jobs would go away, and hundreds of thousands of college graduates would not enter the sales profession because of e-commerce. We don't need salespeople anymore. Yet the profession flourished. Why? It's because more information has not made it easier on buyers. It's made it harder. It slowed things down. It has caused the status quo to win more than ever. And as a result, that's part of this whole evolution of selling, is that I believe that the future of selling and our role is, buyers don't buy when they're convinced, or if they do, they're pissed about it a couple hours later. They buy when they can predict, right? They buy when they can make a prediction. Is the juice going to be worth the squeeze? Is the resource, the time, and the dollars that I'm going to apply to this going to give me the outcome I want? And is it better use of that resource, time, and dollars than doing something else? Our job as salespeople is to illuminate and help them predict. And I believe that's why when you buy online, you go to the negative, right? Because you're trying to predict. When we're in human to human or B2B selling, our job as salespeople is to help the buyers predict. Like, hey, here's what you might not like. Here's what a competitor does better than us. If that's going to be important, let's talk about that now. Hey, we're at the higher end price-wise, if that's going to give you heartburn, let's talk about that now before we get to the end here. And you go, whoa, like sticker shock has never been associated with anything good in the history of the world. And when you do that, you disarm the buying brain's resistance to influence. You allow them a filing system for all the good. And again, that 4.2 to 4.5 is important. I'm not telling you to go into your sales pursuits and be like, hey, this is why we suck. Like, no, take it easy. 4.2 to 4.5 is an important type of thing, just a mindset to have that, hey, as Tyra Banks calls it, yes, supermodel Tyra Banks, she uses the term flawsome to talk about this idea that, hey, we as human beings, but also our solutions are flawed, but they're still awesome. That's your goal here, right? Embrace the things that you give up to be great at your core.
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept. I've tried to embrace it. Yeah, told them how rubbish I am, and no, but no, I was talking to people about it, and it's just they can't get their head around it. When you start to explain, oh yeah, and I was talking to a car salesman about this the other day. He actually said, he goes, so I should probably show the dints first.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Actually, because if you don't, I'm going to see them and go, well, what else haven't you told me about? And he went, never thought about it like that. So if I'm taking a video of it, because they're into using video now as well, aren't they? Right, I'm just going to show you a couple of dints first, because it has got, but they can easily be dealt with. But then let me show you the rest of it.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's as simple as that.
Rather than, I'm going to stand with my foot over it for the whole of the conversation in a weird kind of pose.
You don't find out.
Yeah.
Right. The minute you do, the erosion of trust is explosive, right? With every interaction, you're either building trust or eroding it. And if you're trying to hide stuff, the minute it's found, it's gone and everything else gets clouded. So you're absolutely right.
Oh, cool. So moving on then, the transparent sales leader, which I've not read yet. You sold them all. That's the leader saying, hey, I'm a rubbish leader. No,
kind of.
Or is it? Is it? I mean,
right. So here's the funny thing about it. It's called the transparent sales leader, but the story of it is a little bit different than you might think.
Okay.
It's much more tactical than that. I don't know about you, but like when I first got promoted into sales leadership, here's what happened. Like I got a call from my CEO saying, we think you're ready. Right. And all of a sudden I took over as VP of sales, worldwide sales for a, Silicon Valley startup that had been doing well and then started to fall apart. And so they got rid of the VP of sales and they put me in. And I'm like, great. This has always been my goal. I'm so excited to go build this and fix it. But wait a second. As a salesperson, I always had a process and a structure. As a sales leader, I quickly found that I was like a dog chasing a car down the street every morning, right? That like, I never knew what direction the car was going, but I know I got to get that car. And it was like, there's a deal issue. I've got a personnel issue. I got to recruit. I got a board meeting. I got to give a forecast to my boss. Like every day it was crazy. And my brain, I'm too much of a nerd for that. And so I created a structure of sales leadership. It's basically a sales leadership process. I call it the 5 F's of building revenue capacity, and I can share those with you.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
And then over the years, I started using that to proactively plan and see the holes before they formed. Ever since then, that was 2008. Being the nerd I am, I've optimized each one of those with behavioral science, and then laid it all on a bed of transparency and sincerity. And just to create the optimal model for what sales leadership is, how to gain control over it, and then do it in a way that actually draws your team to you, to want to show up every day, to stay, to do their best, and then to advocate for you and your organization. And so that's the book, right? It's the structure optimized by science on a bed of transparency.
I love it. So, and those benefits, I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Well,
if you don't want that, you should be a sales leader. I mean, to be fair. But...
well, yeah. And it was funny because the way that I did it is I was like, all right, I got a forecast over here. I got to build a team. My team's working on deals they shouldn't be working on. Oh crap, they're not engaged. Like I got a complex. It was driving me nuts. And so I laid out on like a big whiteboard. I was like, here's all my roles. And then I categorized them. And I found really quickly that as a sales leader or any kind of revenue leader, you have 5 core responsibilities. And then because I'm a dumbass, I had to make them alliterative. So I made sure they all started with the letter F.
Nothing wrong with that. It's either a word or they got to alliterate. Yeah, no, nothing wrong at all.
Exactly. If it was 5 random words like, coconut, and I'd forget them right away. I needed to make it easy. And so here they are.
Yeah.
Your first initial and ongoing responsibility as a revenue leader is focus. Meaning when your team wakes up in the morning, where are they spending their most valuable asset, which is their time? On the right opportunities, meaning the firmographics, like the right verticals, the right sizes, the right geographies, right demographics within those. So the right individuals within them, roles, titles, levels, the right prerequisites, if there's certain prerequisites. But your first and ongoing responsibility is making sure that your time is used and your team's time is used as effectively as possible. And you got to establish that first. Once your focus is established, your second responsibility, initially and ongoing, is to build a field organization. So it's the field, maybe a bit of a force fit, but I was once SVP of sales and field operations. So field, all right, you got the field.
It's all right, mate. Pass, that's good.
There you go, cool. So it's building the field and optimizing it for your focus.
Yeah.
Meaning the right people in the right places with the right experiences at the right levels, with the right tools and the right resources and the right compensation plan. Like all of that stuff goes into building a field to attend to that focus, not the other way around. Like I've seen companies that build a field and then go, all right, go after these guys, right? Like that, there's a million sports analogies on that, but it's the same thing in revenue leadership.
Yeah.
Right? So you got your focus, you built a field to support it. The next thing you got to do is the fundamentals, making sure that that field does the right things right consistently. So the right messaging, positioning, prospecting, presenting, negotiating, handoff, strategizing, all of that stuff is under your purview as a leader. Number 4 is the forecast. Who knew? You've got a responsibility as a leader to predict the future, right? Not only through revenue that's going to come in, but like the right KPIs, the right metrics. And then your 5th responsibility, arguably the cheesiest, but could be the most important, is fun. Meaning building a culture where your team wants to show up every day, stay, do their best, and become advocates for you and your organization. You can't think of one responsibility that you have that doesn't fall into one of those 5 categories. And all of you listening, you could literally write the 5 categories on a piece of paper and have a 30, 60, 90-day plan built in 20 minutes, right? Like that's a bold thing, but like you could go through and go, all right, how are we doing on all these 5? Do I feel comfortable that my team spends their time the right way? Do I have the right team and the right tools and resources in terms of the field to attend to that focus? How comfortable am I that team is doing the right things right fundamentally every day? And then you've got a responsibility to forecast. How good am I at predicting? Am I measuring the right things? And then the 5th one, fun. Have I built a culture where this team is intrinsically inspired to show up every day? Like the old thing that I say a lot is, if you think your team is coin operated, you're right if you're doing it wrong, right? Like you need to create an environment where your team gets the variable compensation as a reward for doing work they love to do instead of it being the reason they do it.
Love it. No, it's not fuss at all. I know you do need to alliterate. And then, so let me just go back. Let me just be double sure I understood this. The order is relevant. Yeah. The focus
initially,
first,
yes.
Then,
and I believe it's focus before field before fundamentals, right? And really getting that nailed first. But like forecasting is ongoing. Fun is ongoing. Fun encompasses all of them. But then over time, like as a leader in my last role, for example, we did those things, right? Like as we started, it was like, we're only going after retailers and brands, right? Like we need to have that focus because reviews, you could there's reviews on medical practices and doctors and realtors and real estate and travel. And like, we could do all that stuff. No, what we're best at and what we know our clients love us for is retail and brand. And guess what? There's a million of them, right? Our total addressable market in that space is best, and we're best optimized for it. So we established that. And then I wanted to build a team to support that could talk the lingo, right? And that could go in and have a conversation with a head of e-commerce for a retailer and be able to teach them something and bring value to them versus being a salesperson like, here's what's in my briefcase. And then build the fundamentals around that, right? And so those like you can't build the fundamentals around messaging, positioning, and prospecting until you know what your focus is, who you're going after, who the optimized message is for, and what kind of team tools and resources you have to support that. Yeah. So those are really the three to start with. But like there were times that came up where I needed to focus on those things, and the order kind of blends together over time.
It blends together, but the focus certainly doesn't disappear because you start off it's focus or whatever, and we do it, and we're doing all the right things, and then we start to drift, don't we? And you suddenly notice, hang on a minute, where's Fred gone? Fred, we said we're not going into hospitality. Yeah, but I really like it. I'm sure you like it. Get back in track, but we do, so it's kind of you're keeping that focus and just overviewing that this is what we're good at. And it's all built around that.
Yes. So, yeah, exactly. I used to call it. We had a no science projects policy, right? Like, and that was the way. And I would get in battles with my CEO about it, because like that medical example that I told you about, like we had a board member that knew that space, and she was like, "Hey, you guys should go after this. I've got some like a big conglomerate in North Carolina here in the U.S. that you should go talk to." And I told my CEO, I was like, "That's fascinating, but don't use my rep for it." Right. Because it's going to take her eye off the ball. And he's like, "Screw you, Todd. I'm the CEO. I'm taking her." And so sure enough, we went down that circled that drain for about 3 months, eventually determined that it was not a good fit. 2 months later, my rep in North Carolina resigned. Right. And like, that's the kind of stuff that I knew was going to happen. And because all of a sudden she's got 5 months of no revenue building, nothing entering her pocket, and there's great opportunities all over the place. Like that's why I always took a hard line on that, and it's ongoing.
So and everyone else who stayed on track, they're doing well because they're doing the stuff that everything is built to support, and it's hugely frustrating. Well, I'm off.
Yeah, exactly. And so within each one of those focus field, fundamentals, forecast, there's some counterintuitive stuff that is going to challenge. It's even things that I did wrong now that I've really dug into the behavioral science. I'm like, why did I do that? But it's things that I see across the board that I think are going to really scratch some heads and hopefully make sales leadership even more effective. And I've got a couple of those.
I love the counterintuitive stuff. Like it does make me scratch my head. We'll finish recording this and I'll be like, oh, what? My wife, what's happened? I mean, I've been talking to Todd. Hit me up with a couple of them.
Oh, I've got like 10 of them, but because we did the sales history part, I'll start with this one. That was a big discovery. You were asking about what I read and what I've been reading lately. And it's funny that, especially in those magazines, the challenges that sales and sales leadership have today are the same, right? The same kinds of issues. Prospecting's hard, like all that kind of stuff, right? The one challenge that I never see brought up back then is forecasting. But today, sales leaders really struggle with an accurate forecast, right? I think I know why. I think I figured it out. Here's the thing. And so for all of you that have not seen the movie before, Glengarry Glen Ross, 1992 movie. If you haven't seen it, just YouTube search the Alec Baldwin scene. It's Blake from Mitch and Murray, which is the headquarters. He comes and does basically an abusive rant to the sales team, right? It's like last time I watched it, I think I cried myself to sleep afterwards. Here's the thing though. In it, he goes through this thing called AIDA, right? and he talks about it, and he got one word wrong, but AIDA, attention. Is the customer or prospect paying attention? I is interest. Like, are they interested? Have they shown signs that they are interested in what I'm doing? He says decision in it, but the word I want to swap it out for, and I'm going to explain why, is desire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does the person have a desire for it now? And then the last day is action. Like, are they going to take action? That's something that he got right. Because if you go all the way back to 1898, Elias St. Elmo Lewis, 1898, theorized that every buyer goes through AIDA on their purchase journey. Attention, interest, desire, action. And it became the basis for every forecasting methodology and every sales process. Every sales process was based on AIDA or slight variations of it from 1898 to at least 1940. All of them, to the point where in 1924, Elmer Ellsworth Ferris wrote in his book, and he's got a chart that's got AIDA on it. He's like, every salesperson knows it's AIDA, right? Like, we've all conceded to it. Now, 2022, Fred, how many sales practitioners talk about AIDA today?
Now,
like, none.
I do, actually.
Really? Oh, dude,
no, I do.
Awesome.
No, I do, because for me, it makes perfect sense still as a way to structure a call or a meeting. You've got to tweak the way you understand interest, but you got to get attention, right? Show me you understand about them. Yeah. Interest. Are they interested? Well, they don't like to be, so start asking the questions. Best way to be interested. Desire. Well, now it's my turn to have a go at saying where I think they could then get action to keep the step moving on. So I actually do train that because, again,
that's awesome.
Learning from history, I like.
Well, the thing is, that was always based on recognizing buyer behavior. Every endorphin rush that a sales rep would get was based on milestones that were about buyer behavior. Now, you fast forward to 1993 when Siebel started, 1999 when Salesforce started. You know, every CRM and every sales process, every stage is seller focused, right? Seller activity, prospecting, qualification, discovery, proposal, demo, close. Like, we can say all day long that we are buyer focused as sales leaders and revenue leaders, but all of the things that we measure and drive sellers through is based on their own activities. There's where we went wrong from a forecasting perspective. Now, at Power Reviews, I had created a forecasting methodology that, like, we weren't going to rip out our Salesforce and redo the stages, but I created an overlay to it that was based on recognizing buyer behavior. And the three stages that I used were: why change? Like, have they recognized that their status quo is no longer sustainable? Why us? Like, have they decided that we are the right solution versus doing something else? And then why now? Like, are they ready to go? Are they going to sign? Like, all that kind of stuff. What's the timing? Let's get this locked down. And I'll argue anybody on the order of that. I'm very passionate about the order of that one. Our forecasting immediately got incredibly more accurate. Like, overnight, we got to the point where we started driving that along with some other counterintuitive philosophies that we used about forecasting. But over a 6-quarter period, our 90-day forecast was within 3.5%. And one of those quarters, it was within like $12,000. Now, that's part luck, right? But it is also, who knew that if we're trying to forecast when buyers are going to buy, we should probably focus our forecasting on recognizing buyer behavior versus seller behavior. Like, look, who knew? But that's one of those things that I think the future of forecasting needs to get back to a recognition of buyer behavior. And we need to go talk to Salesforce and HubSpot and all those guys and go, hey, your sales stages, stop it. Like, stop it with the sales focused, the seller focused sales stages if you want people to start forecasting accurately.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah. I use it because I think it makes sense just to structure a meeting like that. It does. I can't think of a better way to do it. It's some, again, take good stuff from the past, tweak it, add, but I love it. What else?
It's awesome. Yeah. Keep banging on that one. Gosh, there's so many. One of the other ones that I just think is funny, is, and I'm not advocating for what you think I am here, but here's the thing. There's a neuroscientist. He's a professor at Duke University named Dan Ariely. If anybody's ever heard, like, watch his TED Talks, the guy's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's got a book called Payoff. And in it, he talks about, and so I was just reading his book and I was like, wait a second. He's got this, he talks about a study that was done where individuals were brought into a lab and they sat at a table and there was a practitioner there that would give them basically like a Lego model. It's a type of Lego called Bionicles.
Yeah.
But they were given this in its 40 parts, right? 40 pieces. They were given this model and they're like, hey, build it and we'll pay you when you're done. All right, that's the task. Build the 40-piece Lego model. We'll pay you when you're done. Group one does it. They build the model. They give it to the practitioner. The practitioner looks at it, puts it on the shelf behind them so that the person can see it, pays them and says, all right, here's another one. Build it. We'll pay you again. That's group one, right? The job is build it. The pay is the pay. Group number two, same exact responsibility, right? Build the Lego model, 40 pieces. We're going to pay you for it. Same dollar amount. Everything's exactly the same. The one difference, though, is that as they're building the first one, as they're building the second one, the practitioner is disassembling the first one and putting it back in the box. All right. And then when they're done with the second one, they give that first one back to them and go, all right, build it again, same pay. So same job, same pay. Guess what? The whole study was how many would they build before they were like, I've had enough. Mm. Group one did 2x what group two did. And so when I'm reading this through my sales nerdy head, I'm like, wait a second. At the end of every year, we start all the reps over at zero, right? We basically take what they've built, we disassemble it, put it back in the box and go, here, build it again. But we're going to pay you a little less because you've got to build it bigger. Now,
yes.
I look at that and go, first of all, like, you're disengaging those top performers because you're actually rewarding bottom performers when you do that too, right? The bottom performers like, woohoo, I'm back at zero with everybody else. That crappy year everybody's forgotten about. But your top performers, they're now back at zero with the bottom performers, right? And so I looked at that and thought, all right, maybe I'm not saying like we don't start people over at zero. Maybe we do, but there is so much intrinsic inspiration that's found in being able to see long-term the impact of what we've built. And so I want all revenue leaders to think about, all right, you want to reward your top performers. You want them to be most engaged, not least engaged. And that's what starting over at zero does. How do we make them, like, show them every day the impact that they're making on the business, the impact they're making on customers and the customers long-term. And that could be doing something with their comp or their quota, but it also could be just even having a logo wall that says, hey, Fred did these 3, right? And he did them 3 years ago and they're on stage still talking about us. Thanks, Fred. Like, for you to be able to see what you've built over time is going to cause your team and your top performers to stay, to be more intrinsically inspired and to walk around with pride. And that's what you want.
For sure. It's interesting, actually. I don't know if it's just me and my attention is being drawn to a lot of this intrinsic motivation stuff, or if genuinely more people are talking about it now. I hope it's the latter, because if it is, that's absolutely the right thing, because we can do so much there. And like I said, not necessarily very expensive and unreasonably easy. Right. And you can make it a lot of fun. It's like, why are we doing this stuff? The science is showing it works. Yeah,
exactly. That's half the book. So the first half of the book is the structure. And I go through the first 4 F's and give you like tactical, like, here's how to optimize each one. And then the second half of the book is that 5th F, which is fun. And I break down another model in there of the 6 things that drive us to maximum intrinsic inspiration. And then simple tactical things you can do within each one to optimize those too.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'd say I have it on order anyway. So as soon as it's
nice.
around, I'll be tucking into that. Oh, superb. I know we could go on and go all through the model and pretty much the whole of sales history. But I know you got to jump onto another call. So now look, thank you so much for spending a bit of time talking about the book. Best way to get in contact with you?
Well, yeah, I'm hard not to find, but I mean, a good place to start is just toddcaponi.com. You can connect with me through there. I've got my blog. I do a podcast called the Sales History Podcast.
Yeah.
I just do it for fun, but if anybody's nerdy for that, it's just me monologuing on different topics from sales history. But yeah, I do workshops. I do keynotes, doing a lot of sales kickoffs right now, but you can find all that information at toddcaponi.com or LinkedIn. Follow or connect with me there. Just let me know where you heard me.
Brilliant. Yeah, we'll pop links to both of those into the show notes. So superb, Todd. I mean, always a pleasure.
Oh, dude, I've got to be a third-time guest at some point. We're going to make that happen.
We're going to make it out. You just got to write another book, mate.
There you go. Don't make me write another one right now.
Oh, no. Superb. Thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. If you like what you've heard, why not subscribe so you know when the latest episodes become available? Take a look at my YouTube channel. All episodes are available there, along with extra material all about modern selling. Connect with me on LinkedIn, where I'll share more information around collaborative selling. All part of my mission around having good people doing good things in a good way.